Witch Queen. Everyone's excited for the new stuff that's gonna come out. Particularly, I think we're all a little bit anxious to see what new weapons and exotic armors we can get in our hands to slay Hive Guardians. Today, I've taken 5 exotics from the YouTube comment section, Discord, as well as my own Patreon. Let's hope these catch Bungie's attention. We're gonna be doing something a little bit different today. I sat down with one of these ideas in particular, and it took me so long, but it looks so damn good that we're actually going to go ahead and start out with the featured exotic of the week. I might keep going with this, so let me know in the comments down below if this particular styling of this form of video is something that interests you, or if you would just rather me go back to the old version, or maybe find some way in between. If you have an exotic idea of your own, of course, make sure you're subscribed and leave a comment down below with your idea. You might get featured in the next video. So, like I stated, we're gonna start out with the featured exotic of the week with Dollinator9 from our Patreon, who had the idea of these Skadis, I believe, Skadies. And might I say, the art for this, the visual aid for this, looks so damn good. It took me like 4 hours to get this down, but it looks so damn good. I was sitting there trying to figure out what Bungie's font is, and it turns out it's like an Arial font with some particularly weird spacing, but it looks, tell me this doesn't look like it's from the game. Like, this looks so close to reality. I was super excited to bring it, which is why the rest of the exotics didn't actually end up becoming something like this or as fully fleshed out, because this took so damn long. But anyway, the exotic perk is called Niflheim's Wrath. This weapon can be fully drawn indefinitely at the cost of being slowed. Damage is increased as you continue to draw the weapon. So basically, this has the Oath Keepers baked into them. Essentially, you can continue to hold down the draw of this arrow indefinitely. The only problem is that you will continue to take stacks of freeze as you hold it. As to the particular timing, I think that this should take a solid 5 seconds before you are frozen for 2 seconds. When you are fully frozen, the arrow will automatically release, and if you happen to hit a guardian with this fully drawn arrow, it is enough to insta-kill a guardian. Now, of course, a primary weapon that's capable of insta-killing is quite powerful, but being that you have to literally freeze yourself as well as hold this thing down for a pretty long period of time, I think would make this relatively balanced. And in PvE, this perk alone would have to ramp up significantly, allowing you to deal extreme amounts of damage to a boss, similar to the level of a heavy weapon, being that it would take such a long time for this to actually happen, where the DPS would be relatively low, but the burst damage would be incredibly high. But of course, we can't have an exotic weapon without its exotic perk, which is the Birth of Ymir. After coming out of any freeze, this weapon gains bonus handling and grants plus 50 mobility for a short time. I think a full 10 seconds would be sufficient. I absolutely love this idea, and I think that being that we don't have a stasis bow quite yet, this would definitely fill that slot. And like I said, look at this thing. It looks so damn good. This looks like it could be in the game. Feel free to leave any scalding criticism in the comments below. Let's roll on to the next one. Next up on the list is a throwback to an exotic from Destiny 1, an exotic that I am super glad that I'm not the only one who seems to have caught the reference that that exotic was trying to throw down. This is the Queen Killer. This is an exotic 72 RPM sniper rifle. It has decent handling, and yes, this is the Zen Meteor back from Destiny 1, and the exotic perks are exactly the same. Dynamite rounds. Rounds fired from this weapon explode on contact and have increased explosion radius. And the exotic perk is called Lasered In. Acquiring a precision kill with each round in the magazine loads an extra extremely powerful round into the magazine. This round explodes on contact with a force that rivals a supernova. I think that last bit there is just for a bit of flavor text. But yes, this is the Zen Meteor, and the Zen Meteor's perks were all a reference to a Queen song called Killer Queen, of which this is obviously being a good throwback to. I love the way that this rewards a skilled hand, as it requires you to only get precision kills with each round in the magazine being 3 deep, and if you can get each bullet to deal a precision kill, the next round is a guaranteed body shot within PvP, or in something like PvE, again, this would be a huge chunk of damage. If you're looking at this and wondering how this would be different than, say, something like the Cloud Strike, at least obviously in terms of the exotic perk itself, obviously not the RPMs or the the burn. The difference is that this requires the kills, not necessarily precision hits, and we can make that final explosive round very, very deadly. Even more deadly than the Cloud Strikes perk. Really fun idea. I really loved the Zen Meteor just because of its pure flavor, and we could use some more exotic snipers in the game. I feel like we've gotten enough exotic hand cannons. For our first exotic from the YouTube comment section, we have the Wrath of Riven. This is a submachine gun in the kinetic slot. It has a 900 RPM archetype, and its exotic perk is called Taken Overload. Kills with this weapon grants you stacks of Taken energy with a max of 4 stacks. The author themselves said that this would be sort of similar to how the Vex Mythoclast works. At 4 stacks, you gain Taken Overload, lasting 20 seconds before disappearing. That alone doesn't really do a whole lot, so let's add a little bit of context with the exotic perk. Eye of Darkness. While in Taken Overload, gain increased movement speed. Hold the reload button to convert your next thrown grenade into an Eye of Darkness and consume your Taken Overload. This Eye of Darkness is an Acolyte's Eye and would deal hefty amounts of damage and would display your name above it as if it was your Acolyte's Eye. This plays off of a couple interesting ideas. A Taken weapon is not necessarily something we have yet. We have ornaments for something like Thorn, which makes it look Taken, and obviously we have Whisper of the Worm, which I guess that counts as Taken, right? But it doesn't really feel Taken-y. It doesn't really feel Taken flavored, I guess. This, I think, feels way more Taken flavored. I love the idea of being able to essentially create our own, what is essentially a stasis turret, but obviously without the whole stasis effect, and more damage, requiring us to get kills instead. Again, very similar to how the Vex Mythoclast would work. I think this would be great as a crowd control tool, and obviously the risk reward is quite interesting. I don't know how well this would work in terms of PvE, but obviously you could get some free damage off on targets without necessarily having to be in the line of sight with that Taken Eye being around the corner able to deal damage. It would be even more interesting if this could also, that Taken Eye could also inherit whatever types of effects you've got going on. So maybe it's like anti-barrier SMG. That Taken Eye would also do anti-barrier SMG, but failing that, being that the exotic perk is called Taken Overload, what if the Taken Eye just dealt Overload? That would be a great way to add a little bit of utility into the PvE side of things without breaking it, I don't think. Let me know what you think of this one. Let's roll on to the next idea. Again, another exotic idea from the comment section with the Rapids. It is a wave frame grenade launcher. Something we don't see very often. The intrinsic perk is called Unstoppable Force. When this weapon hits a target with its wave, it will cause severe knockback. The wave also overpenetrates targets and can stun unstoppable champions, so already some baked in utility there. And the exotic perk is called Hazardous Object. If a target gets knocked back into a target, they will take 25 damage, and they will be slowed for 2 seconds, playing heavily into the crowd control element. Now, I don't normally mention the catalyst, as I feel like the exotic idea in and of itself should be self-sufficient, but I feel like this catalyst is almost a necessity to make this really shine, whereas the other ones I think is just a nice benefit on top of what you got. The exotic catalyst for this one, I think, should just be baked into this gun, which is Icy Waters. When hit with this grenade launcher, if the target is hit by stasis, they will stay frozen for 50% longer. And I love seeing exotics that are built around the idea of shutting down aggression. I think Destiny is continuing to get faster and faster, and the players who want to play defensively need more tools in order to at least have an answer to the more aggressive playstyles. And for the last exotic idea of the day from our Discord, we have the Vengeful Oak. I would love to give a full lore reading of this, as the lore here is actually quite interesting, but I'll give you the short version. Basically, this gun became somewhat sentient after a guardian became somewhat obsessed with the thing and continued to kill other guardians and other things with it, so it's kind of developed a sort of malicious mind of its own, which is a lot of fun. Destiny definitely has its dark flavorings. The exotic perk is called I Need a Longer Barrel, a little on the nose in it. Dealing melee damage massively increases range until stowed or the next shot has been fired. And the exotic trait is a bit wordy, so again, let me shorten this up. Basically, melee final blows give you a stacking buff/debuff, which increases the damage, melee distance, and movement speed, as well as the range, until you get a kill or this weapon is stowed or you die, etc. The thing that I would love to see reworked on the exotic trait, specifically outside of the wordiness, is that this only is supposed to last for a brief period of time or until you get that next shot. But I think this would be interesting if this perk continued to stay with you and continue to stack more and more and more. Obviously, we could make the increments that this actually goes up by a little bit shorter, so it doesn't, you know, from one kill become absolutely insane. But this would play into the idea of the lore that you're trying to build up for this a little bit better, as obviously the lore for this is supposed to be that the Guardian who used this came somewhat obsessed with the thing. I know the first concern that comes up is we don't want to encourage shotgun aping, especially within things like PvP, but I think that if you are essentially locked into this and it continued to debuff you, which actually I didn't mention here because it, again, a little bit long, but what it would do is as you continue to get kills with this, your screen would become harder and harder to see through, giving you more and more tunnel vision, which I think is just perfect. I think that flavor is just perfect for a shotgun such as this. A lot of great ideas here. A lot of these were a lot of fun. I am sorry if you guys were all looking forward to having these more fleshed out as we've seen previously with their little perk icons and such, but like I said, that first one took a lot of time. I'm gonna see if I can maybe split the difference between everything here and try to find something that allows me to still put everything down and make it look nice while still having that, you know, much more flavorful one towards the end or something like that. But let me know what you think of this one. Make sure you like and subscribe, and until then, bless your faces and deuces.